Chapter 1. A Note Beneath the Teacup. Neptune had never been quieter. A salt breeze threaded the early spring air, stirring the ivy on the weathered fence outside the Seahorse Cafe, where Veronica Mars sat, cross-legged, on a wicker chair with her back to the morning sun. It was the sort of day that whispered of secrets, soft, warm, deceptive. "Another tea, Miss Mars?" called Maggie, the proprietor, her apron dusty with flour and cinnamon. Veronica gave a slow nod, her eyes fixed not on the sea, but on the woman 2 tables away, a middle-aged figure in navy wool, her fingers trembling ever so slightly as she raised a sugar cube. This was not unusual behavior for a Neptune resident, especially someone seated alone before noon. But Veronica, having returned from her brief stint in London after the whole not-quite Scotland Yard internship, had learned to spot disquiet like a bloodhound caught a scent. "You all right, Mrs. Wycliffe?" Veronica asked, as she rose and wandered over with her half-empty cup. The woman startled, her spoon clinking against the porcelain. "Oh, yes, dear, quite all right. Just a breeze." Veronica smiled in that unthreatening way she'd perfected, wide-eyed, curious, always with an underlying current of "I know you're lying." "Lovely weather. So strange to see you out without your dog." That did it. Mrs. Wycliffe's face twitched in a brief pained expression before she said, "Basil's not been well. Poor dear's resting at home." A lie. Veronica knew it. So did Mrs. Wycliffe, which made her change the subject abruptly. "Your father must be glad you're back." "He is. He doesn't say it, but I caught him humming to a Springsteen record yesterday. That's his version of a tearful reunion." That drew a smile, albeit brief, and Veronica left it there. She didn't press. Not yet. Back at her own table, she reached for her saucer and found something peculiar. A folded piece of notepaper had been tucked beneath her teacup. The writing was hurried, and there were ink blots at the corners. "Come to the greenhouse. Sunset. Don't trust the constable." There was no signature. Veronica narrowed her eyes and scanned the cafe. Maggie was delivering a pastry to a young couple. A fisherman read a crumpled local paper at the corner table. And Mrs. Wycliffe was gone. A moment later, Maggie returned with Veronica's fresh tea. "Mrs. Wycliffe just left in a rush," she noted absently. "Didn't touch her toast." Veronica thanked her, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The greenhouse. Neptune had only one. The dilapidated glass house on the Lorimer estate, now owned by Eloise Lorimer, a woman of great charm, mystery, and scandal. That word again, scandal. Once home, Veronica pulled out her well-worn notepad, the one she didn't use for client work, but for instincts, those odd niggles that refused to leave her alone. She scribbled, "Wycliffe nervous, Basil not sick. Don't trust the constable?" Why? Who knew I'd be at Seahorse this morning? The last question chilled her slightly. Her plans had not been public, and she hadn't told even Wallace. Whoever left the note knew her well. Sunset came quickly in Neptune. By the time Veronica reached the greenhouse, the sky was streaked in violet and gold. The structure loomed like a memory of something once beautiful, glass broken in parts, vines wrapped like whispers around rusted frames. She stepped inside. It smelt of wet earth, rosemary, and neglect. She heard a shuffle and turned sharply. "Mrs. Wycliffe?" she whispered. Nothing. She moved further in. A single hanging lantern flickered in the far corner, casting long shadows across an overturned potting bench. And then she saw it. A dark shape slumped over the bench. Veronica's breath caught. She approached slowly, cautiously, and saw what her instincts feared. A man, head turned to the side, eyes wide open in a frozen stare. It was Constable Derek Rowe, dead, and clutched in his hand a scrap of paper. Veronica eased it free, reading the smudged writing beneath the flicker of lantern light. You shouldn't have come here alone. Chapter 2. The Widow's Garden. Veronica stood motionless in the heart of the greenhouse, the note still clutched in her fingers. The words, "You shouldn't have come here alone," echoed in her mind like a warning bell. Yet she hadn't come alone, had she? Someone else had been here first, and they'd left behind a corpse. Constable Derek Rowe's lifeless body lay awkwardly against the potting bench, as if he'd tried to brace himself before collapsing. His right hand was stained with soil and a trace of blood, and something about the way his fingers curled suggested he had tried to write more than the note she now held. Veronica knelt, taking care not to disturb anything. No obvious weapon, no signs of struggle, at least not a violent one, and no broken glass, just the scent of damp soil and honeysuckle and the faint rustle of ivy from the wind outside. Her phone was out before the panic had time to register. She called her father. "Dad, you're not going to believe this, but Constable Rowe's dead. Greenhouse, Lorimer Estate, and I think someone lured me here to find him." There was a pause. "Veronica," Keith Mars said, in the tired voice of someone who both trusted and feared his daughter's instincts. "Tell me you didn't touch anything." Only the note in his hand. "I'm on my way." She clicked off, glanced once more at the body, then backed out, slowly. Her eyes scanned the surrounding glass panes. One of them was cracked from the outside. A stone, maybe, or a tool. Then came the voice. "I thought I saw someone slip in." Veronica turned sharply. Eloise Lorimer stood at the threshold of the greenhouse, holding pruning shears in one gloved hand and a trowel in the other. Her wide-brimmed hat threw her face into shadow, but the glint of suspicion was unmistakable. "I was walking through the orchard," Eloise continued, stepping forward. "The greenhouse door's always meant to be locked. And now you're here. And is that Derek Rowe?" Veronica nodded. "Dead. I didn't move him. He was already like that." Eloise blinked, then reached behind her to pull the door shut. Well, this just became rather inconvenient for both of us. That raised Veronica's brow. "Inconvenient? You think I wanted a corpse among my lavender seedlings?" Eloise snapped. "He's been nosing about for days, asking about my grandfather's old letters, demanding to see the West Wing, the one under restoration. Now he's dead, in my greenhouse. Any idea why he was so interested in your family papers?" "No more than I know why someone keeps digging up the north garden in the middle of the night." Veronica froze. "Someone's been doing what?" Eloise's lips tightened. "Last week I found the rosemary bed trampled and a spade left behind. I assumed it was vandals, kids, or my neighbour's wretched son Josh. He's been trespassing since Easter." Just then, headlights flared through the hedge. Keith Mars' car. Veronica breathed a small sigh of relief. When Keith arrived, he took one look at the body and shook his head. "We're not even 2 days into your return." "You missed me?" Veronica quipped, but her eyes were still scanning the area. "Dad, there's something else. Someone's been digging out here at night. Eloise thinks it's kids. I think it's connected." Keith raised a brow. "To the dead constable?" "To the note he was holding, and the one I got earlier today." She handed both to him. He read them in silence, frowning. "Well, someone wanted you to be the one to find him." As the constables arrived to secure the scene, Veronica pulled aside one of the junior officers. "Can someone check the flower beds on the north end? There might be something buried, something Rowe was close to finding." "Buried like what?" the officer asked. Veronica's gaze drifted across the foggy greenhouse to the broken glass pane. buried like a secret someone wanted dead before it could bloom. Chapter 3. The Boy with the Spade. Morning mist clung to Neptune's hedgerows like unspoken truths. Veronica stood beside the scorched rosemary bed on the Lorimer estate's north lawn, watching as a constable swept back the final clumps of disturbed soil. Nothing had been buried deep, just shallow enough for someone in a rush. "Find anything?" she asked. The officer, Doyle, knelt and unearthed a small, weather-worn tin. It had been wrapped in waxed cloth, but time and weather had not been kind. He handed it to Veronica as if expecting a ghost to leap out. Inside were faded photographs, black and white, curled at the corners, a few letters, yellowed and brittle, and in the middle a cracked silver locket. Veronica opened it. One side held the photo of a young man in military uniform, World War II era. The other, a tiny pressed flower, lavender. "Eloise Lorimer's grandfather?" Doyle asked. "Possibly, but why bury this, and why would Roe care?" Keith joined her then, coffee in hand, his expression grim. "The preliminary report's in. Roe wasn't shot or stabbed. He was poisoned, fast-acting, probably ingested." "Ingested where?" Veronica's eyes flicked up. "You think he had tea with someone?" Keith gave a half shrug. "We're looking into where he went before coming here, but the tox screen's already found digitalis." Veronica blinked. "Foxglove? That's subtle. And common in cottage gardens like this one," he added. Someone knew what they were doing. Later that morning, Veronica visited the Widow Thatcher's garden shop, a place stuffed with clay pots, overgrown roses, and rumours. She found young Josh Barrington stacking sacks of mulch near the potting shed. "You've got dirt on your boots," Veronica called as she approached. Josh, startled, flushing beneath his fringe. "Been here since 7. "Helping the widow or digging in other people's gardens?" He stiffened. "I never... What are you accusing me of?" "Not accusing, Josh. Just asking. Eloise Lorimer said someone's been trespassing, and you're the only one with enough teenaged boredom and access to a spade." "I wasn't digging anything. I lost a football, that's all." Veronica tilted her head, reading his panic. "Then you won't mind if I take a look at your shed?" The colour drained from his face. Before he could bolt, Keith stepped around the corner. "Problem, Miss Mars?" Josh sat down heavily on the nearest crate. "I didn't kill anyone. I just found the locket. Weeks ago. Thought it might be worth something, but then that copper, Roe, he started sniffing around. I panicked. Buried it again last night." "Why panic?" Veronica asked gently. "You said you found it." Josh hesitated. "Because someone threatened me. Said if I breathed a word, I'd end up like the dog." "The dog?" He nodded. "Mrs. Wycliffe's, Basil. Dead last week. Everyone said it was a fox, but it wasn't." That detail landed like a brick. Back at the Mars office, Veronica laid out her findings in a row, each fact like a chess piece, waiting to fall into place. Roe poisoned, with digitalis note warned not to trust him. Buried memento connected to Lorimer's past, Josh threatened after finding it. Basil, the Wycliffe's dog, also mysteriously dead. "There's a pattern," she murmured, tapping her pen. "Someone's covering something. Something old, something tied to that locket." She stared at the soldier's face in the photograph. Who was he? And why was he dangerous to remember? Chapter 4. Tea at number 9. Number 9. Honeywell Lane was one of those picture-perfect cottages Neptune's estate agents liked to flash on postcards. A white picket fence, blooming window boxes, and a blue door with a polished brass knocker shaped like a bumblebee. It also happened to be the home of Agatha Wycliffe, widow of the late Reverend Wycliffe and keeper of more secrets than the local library. Veronica knocked twice, then stepped back, arms folded. She didn't wait long. The door creaked open, and Mrs. Wycliffe blinked into the sunlight like a mole in a frock coat. "Miss Mars, I'm not in the mood for visitors." "Then it's a good thing I brought biscuits," Veronica said, raising a paper bag from Seahorse Cafe. "And a few questions?" The widow hesitated, then, with a long sigh, opened the door wider. "Don't touch the teacups, they're drying." Inside, the parlour was crammed with the faded elegance of a long-past life, rose-patterned drapes, silver-framed portraits, and the faint scent of lavender and mothballs. Veronica sank into a stiff-backed armchair as Mrs. Wycliffe fussed over the tea tray, her hands trembling only slightly. "I presume this is about Derek Rowe," she said finally, pouring tea without looking up. "Yes, and Basil, and whatever's buried on the Lorimer estate." Mrs. Wycliffe paused, the teapot mid-air. "Basil died of fright. That's what I believe. He was always sensitive." "To foxglove?" Veronica asked. The widow's hand stilled. "What exactly are you implying?" "That someone's been using your garden to grow more than geraniums. Derek Rowe was poisoned. Basil was likely the test case, and the connection might just lie in a buried box of old photographs." The widow set the teapot down with a quiet clink. Her eyes, for the first time, met Veronica's squarely. There was a flicker of something there, fear perhaps, or sorrow, or both. "My husband served in the war," she said softly. "He wasn't stationed abroad, not formally, but he handled messages and people. People. Refugees, POWs, those who weren't supposed to be seen." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a photo album, thumbing through pages until she found what she sought. "This man." She tapped the old photo from the tin box, the soldier with the melancholy eyes. "His name was Thomas Vane. He lodged in our spare room for 3 months in 1946. I was only 19. I thought he was charming. My husband, he didn't trust him." "Why not?" "He believed Thomas had information about someone local, someone important. There were whispers about blackmail." "And what happened to Thomas?" "No one knows. One night he vanished. His things were packed as though he meant to leave, but his boots were still by the door." Veronica leaned forward. "And you think the Lorimers were involved?" Agatha's lips thinned. "I know Eloise's grandfather visited that summer. Several times. He and Thomas had arguments in the orchard. And then silence. Afterward, my husband burned every letter Thomas left behind." "Except one," Veronica murmured, pulling the damaged letter from her bag. It had been inside the tin, half torn, but still legible. "I found this near Rowe's body." Agatha took it with a shaking hand. Her eyes scanned the page. "Non cannot stay. The threat is real. Tell no one but her." She stopped. "That's me. He meant me." Veronica tapped the edge of her cup. "Rowe must have uncovered the box Josh reburied. Maybe he recognized the name. Maybe he was trying to finish what your husband started. But someone else got to him first." "Then you must be careful, Miss Mars," Agatha whispered. "This isn't about murder. It's about reputation, family honor. That locket, someone would kill to keep it buried." Veronica stood. "Then it's time I spoke to Eloise again." As she stepped out into the golden dusk, her phone buzzed, a text from Wallace. "Someone broke into the Mars office. Files tossed, but only yours, V." Veronica's grip tightened. It wasn't just murder anymore. Someone was watching her. Chapter 5. The Shadow Behind the Glass. The Mars Investigations Office still smelled faintly of peppermint and printer ink, but now it also reeked of intrusion. Veronica stepped over the scattered files as Wallace met her at the door, arms folded and a distinct frown etched across his face. "They didn't touch the cash box," he said. "Didn't take my lucky stapler either, just your folders, torn open, contents everywhere. They knew what they were looking for." Veronica knelt beside one of the upended drawers. Rose case notes, my copy of the Lorimer family tree, and that old map of the estate's grounds. Gone. Wallace nodded grimly, like a ghost with a to-do list. Veronica reached into her coat and pulled out the photograph from the tin box, the soldier, Thomas Vane. She laid it flat on the desk, smoothing the creases. Someone doesn't want this man's story to surface, she muttered. Rowe figured something out, tried to dig, literally, and got himself killed for it. Wallace tilted his head. You think the same person who poisoned Rowe broke in here? Or they're working for them. This isn't random. She turned toward the window. Across the street, just for a moment, she caught a reflection in the shop window opposite. A figure, hat, long coat, watching. By the time she stepped outside, they were gone. That evening, Veronica returned to the Lorimer estate. Eloise had agreed to speak, if only to clear her name. The house loomed larger in the twilight, its windows glowing with a strange amber warmth that made it feel more haunted than welcoming. Eloise led her into the drawing room, where the walls were lined with portraits and antique weaponry that looked entirely too sharp for comfort. I won't lie, Eloise began, settling into a high-backed chair. I never liked Derek Rowe. He was too nosy, too sure of himself. But I didn't kill him. Veronica leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed. You knew about the locket. And Thomas Vane. Eloise stiffened. I know of him. My grandfather mentioned him once in a letter I found in the attic. Said he was troublesome, that's all. You knew Rowe was close to something. That's why you tried to keep me out of the greenhouse. I tried to keep everyone out, Eloise snapped. The place is crumbling. I've been planning to demolish it for years. I thought if it fell on someone, it might be Derek himself. Veronica arched a brow. Charming. Eloise looked away. There are things you don't understand, Miss Mars. Things buried with good reason. My family's reputation, our standing in this village, rests on certain truths remaining forgotten. Then someone's making sure they stay that way. Veronica's phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Mac. Ran the name Thomas Vane through the military archive, discharged under mysterious circumstances, missing, presumed dead, but he filed a report in 1946, alleged blackmail involving Reverend Wycliffe. Veronica's breath caught. She looked up. Did your grandfather have dealings with Reverend Wycliffe? She asked Eloise. Eloise's eyes flickered. He hated him. Said the Reverend was a coward hiding behind vestments. Enough to kill someone on his behalf? Eloise rose, face pale. You should leave now. Veronica didn't argue. Outside, the wind had picked up. The ivy scraped against the greenhouse glass in slow, eerie patterns as Veronica approached. She reached the edge and stopped. There, in the glass. A shadow moved behind her reflection. She spun. Nothing. No footsteps, no sound, just a scrap of paper pinned to the ivy with a broken twig. Next time you'll find her. Veronica backed away slowly, heart hammering. Her? Someone else was next? And this time the killer wanted her to know it. Chapter 6. The Girl in the Frame. The photo hung in the Neptune Historical Society like an afterthought, faded and half obscured behind a dusty glass case. Veronica leaned closer, squinting under the yellow light bulbs as she brushed a cobweb from the corner of the frame. There she was. A girl in a white dress, standing between two men, one unmistakably the young Thomas Vane, the other Reverend Wycliffe. And in the background, just visible behind the churchyard stone wall, was the Lorimer greenhouse. She looks familiar, Mac whispered at her side. She should, Veronica replied. That's Agatha Wickliffe, or at least it was, before she became the vicar's wife. Mac gave a low whistle. So she wasn't just Thomas's confidant, she was caught between them. Veronica nodded slowly. Which means this wasn't just a wartime scandal, it was a love triangle. And probably a motive. Veronica snapped a quick photo of the framed picture with her phone. I need to talk to her again, before someone makes sure she can't. Mrs. Wickliffe greeted Veronica with the tired grace of a woman who had grown old keeping secrets. You're persistent, Miss Mars. I'm careful, Veronica corrected. It's kept me alive. Agatha hesitated, then stepped aside, allowing her into the parlour once more. The same stale air, the same oppressive quiet. Veronica didn't waste time. Why didn't you tell me you loved Thomas Vane? Agatha turned slowly, face paling. I was young, she whispered, and foolish. I thought we were meant to run away together. He planned to leave. He said so in the letter, but he never got the chance. Agatha moved to the sideboard and poured herself a trembling glass of sherry. Because my husband found out. Veronica stepped closer. Did he kill Thomas? No, she said, but her voice cracked. He arranged things, had Thomas taken away, said he was protecting me, protecting the church. I never saw him again. Veronica absorbed this, then showed her the message she'd found pinned to the greenhouse. Agatha's hand flew to her mouth. Her? Who do they mean? Someone else who knows the truth, or someone who saw what happened. The widow blinked rapidly. No one else saw... She stopped, froze. What? Veronica pressed. There was a child, Agatha whispered. A girl, just 5 or 6. She was playing in the garden that night. I saw her from the window just before Thomas vanished. I never told anyone. I was afraid it would bring her into danger. Whose child? Agatha's lips quivered. I don't know. I assumed she was from the Lorimer household. Veronica's eyes narrowed. That night, back at home, she dug through the remaining Lorimer family files. One name caught her eye, Isadora Lorimer, born 1940. Died 1951, according to the record, except there was no death certificate and no grave. She didn't die, Veronica whispered. She disappeared. Then her phone buzzed. Another message. No number. You're close, too close. Stay away from the orchard at dawn. That settled it. Veronica charged her torch, grabbed her notebook, and reached for her coat. Whoever was watching her had made a mistake. They'd given her a destination, and she wasn't about to ignore it. Chapter 7. Beneath the orchard moon. The orchard was drenched in moonlight, every branch silvered like something from a half-remembered dream. Veronica walked softly between the rows of twisted apple trees, the torchlights swinging across gnarled roots and fallen blossoms. Dawn was a whisper on the horizon, but the chill in the air still bit at her knuckles. She reached the old well at the far end of the Lorimer estate, the spot marked on a long-forgotten gardener's map she'd discovered in a dusty council record. It was half-covered in ivy and warped boards. She'd come alone, despite Wallace's protests. Whoever had sent the message clearly didn't want company, and Veronica knew better than to spook a shadow. A twig snapped behind her. She spun, torch beam steady, falling on a tall figure in a hooded coat. "You came!" the voice said, soft, feminine, and somehow familiar. "I like moonlit strolls and anonymous threats," Veronica said dryly. The woman stepped into the light, Eloise Lorimer. But something about her was different now. Her hair was loose, her face stripped of all that society-polished poise. She looked human, raw. "I didn't send the message," she said. "But I think I know who did. I just didn't want you to get there before me." "To the truth?" Veronica asked. "To her," Eloise whispered. She stepped aside and pointed. There, under a weeping tree, a stone slab had been shifted. Beneath it, a hollow space, a small, rusted tin box. Veronica pulled it out carefully. Inside, a pressed flower, a child's drawing of two people under an apple tree, and a faded ribbon. "She was my aunt," Eloise said quietly. "Isadora? My grandfather's daughter from a housemaid, unacknowledged, hidden. And what happened to her? She saw something she wasn't meant to, the night Thomas Vane disappeared." Veronica swallowed. "Your family hid her away?" "They said it was for her safety, but she vanished. The official story was she drowned, but I found this box in the attic as a child and started asking questions." "You think she was murdered?" Veronica asked. "I don't know, but Roe did. That's what he was looking for." Veronica stared down at the little box. "You buried this once?" "I was a child. I thought it was treasure. Then I grew up and realized it was something worse." They stood in silence as the sky turned pale behind the orchard. Then Eloise said, "There's something else. Before he died, my grandfather left a letter. I never opened it. Too afraid. But it might explain everything." Veronica turned to her, suddenly cold. "Where is it?" "In my study," she said, and behind them a voice rang out, smooth, deliberate. "No need. I've brought it." Both women froze as a figure emerged from the trees, Mrs. Agatha Wickliffe. She held a yellowed envelope in one hand, her expression unreadable. "Time to tell the truth," she said softly. "While there's still someone left to hear it." Chapter 8. The Silence That Remains. The Lorimer study was quiet, heavy with morning light filtering through gauzy curtains. Dust motes swirled in slow patterns as Agatha Wickliffe laid the envelope on the desk, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. Veronica sat opposite, eyes fixed on the aged paper, while Eloise stood by the fireplace, pale as chalk. No one spoke. Then Agatha broke the silence. "He wrote this in 1946, sealed it, left it with me after Thomas Vane vanished, said I would know when the time was right." Veronica picked up the envelope gently and unfolded the letter. The paper crackled in protest as though reluctant to give up its secrets. She read aloud. "To whoever finds this, if the orchard ever speaks, it will not be with words but with shadows. I wronged a man, and in doing so, doomed an innocent girl. Thomas Vane threatened to expose what I had done in France during the war. Men I betrayed to save my own skin. He knew, and worse, he had proof. I arranged for his removal, not death, just silence. But she saw it happen. The child, Isadora, she ran, my daughter by another name. We hid her away, said she drowned. But she never came back. And my silence is what remains. Forgive me. Samuel Lorimer." Veronica lowered the letter slowly. "She ran," Eloise whispered. "She wasn't murdered." Agatha nodded. "Your mother, Eloise, spent years searching, in secret. She thought Isadora might have gone abroad or ended up in a convent. There were sightings in Dover, rumours in Glasgow, but no proof." Veronica glanced at Eloise. "What about Roe? He must have uncovered this." "He did," Agatha said. "He came to me with the photograph of the girl in the orchard, asked if I recognized her. I said no, I lied." "Why?" Veronica asked. "Because I feared what the truth would do." "To you," she said to Eloise. "To this village. I lost my own husband to secrets. I didn't want to be the one to unearth another." Veronica stepped to the window. Below, the orchard lay still, its leaves gold-tipped in the morning light. "So who poisoned Roe?" Agatha sat down, suddenly old. "I don't know. I believe he met someone that evening. He told me he had proof, documents. He planned to take them to the press. And someone silenced him before he could. Just then the door creaked open. Wallace entered, holding a file. "You'll want to see this," he said, handing it to Veronica. Inside was a record from a private hospital in Cornwall. Name, Isadora Vane, date of admission, 1951. Condition, unstable. Diagnosis, dissociative amnesia. Next of kin, none declared. Discharged, 1987. No further record. Veronica exhaled. She survived. She just disappeared. She lived a quiet life, Wallace said. Changed her name. Died a few years ago in a nursing home under the name Isla Gray. Agatha closed her eyes. The orchard kept its silence. Until now. Eloise stepped forward, her voice resolute. "We'll set a memorial, plant something, for her and for Thomas." Veronica nodded. "The truth doesn't fix everything, but it stops the rot." They stepped outside together. In the orchard, a new breeze stirred the branches. Blossoms fluttered down like gentle confessions, and for the first time in decades, the Lorimer estate felt still, not in silence, but in peace.